going on, everybody? Welcome back to another very special episode of the Burnout Brighter podcast. My name's Matt. I'll be your host for this evening's events. This is episode 120. I am joined once again for the first time in what feels like 10,000 years, returning to with his triumphant return about returning things in Returnal. We have Darren once again back with us. What's up, homie?
I didn't know where you were going with that, and I don't think you did
Me
either.
neither. Strap in, buddy. Be kind. Rewind. Welcome back, dude.
Thank you so much. It is great to be back. It's been quite a busy few months for me. I'm able to put my semester behind me for now. I am very excited to once again be back in my bedroom. Well, I mean, I'm always in my bedroom, but this time my bedroom's on camera for the entire world to see. So exciting.
Welcome back, Darren's bedroom specifically. We missed Darren's bedroom very much while Darren's bedroom was not on camera. Now that Darren's bedroom is back on camera, all will be right in the world. Well, let's get straight into it, because this week's episode, now that Darren's back, we know we had to pull him back for Game of the Year, because that's what this episode is going to be. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite games from this year. Or even games that we just played this year. Either or, we'll find out. I don't know Darren's list. He doesn't know mine. Maybe I just have Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 10 times. But he'll have to find out.
Yeah, and also, I always like and appreciate that you put that qualifier where it's like these games might not necessarily have come out in 2021, which I feel is exclusively for me, because I don't play very many games anymore. Well, not as much as I used to. I still play a lot of games. I don't want to just throw myself under the bus as soon as we start the podcast.
Can I clarify that? You spend a lot of time playing games, but no, you don't play a lot of games.
Yes, thank you for putting that in words that make more sense. But this time, my list, although there may be some cheaty business going on, actually includes only games that to some capacity came out this year. So it's truly sort of mostly actually 2021 game of the year.
You can't also just put the Final Fantasy 14 expansions in different slots. It can't be number 1, Stormblood. Number 2, Heavensward. That doesn't count either, okay? None of that bullshit.
No, but good.
Yeah, we're going to be talking...
It's clean.
We're going to be talking about a bunch of our favorite games, along with wrapping up with some news that might be related to said Final Fantasy 14. Well, also, if you take half of Final Fantasy 14, you'll also get Final Fantasy 7, which we'll be talking about, and along with Nintendo's latest indie world. Yeah, look at that. I can math, Darren.
Wow.
That's what happened in the last couple months that you've been gone. I learned how to math. I can do Final Fantasy division and multiplication nowadays.
Then what is the square root of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days?
Well, that was actually obviously Kingdom Hearts 3D, Dream Drop Distance, 3Ds, trees. That's right. Destiny is away this week just because she didn't want to talk to us about Game of the Year. She's like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, she didn't want to deal with our bullshit.
No, she's like, Yuki, all I ever play is Final Fantasy 7, so I'm not going to talk about that again. But yeah, so everyone, welcome back. We are going to be getting into it in just a second. It's been one hell of a week, and we have plenty to talk about, and I just want to talk about games. I love talking about games. We're going to talk about plenty of our favorite games, and we're going to do just that. But Darren, as is tradition, and because it's been a minute, I'm going to start with you. I'll let you ask me what's new.
I was like... Oh, thanks for breaking tradition and starting with me when there's no one else to go to. And then you once again tricked me by making me ask you what's new first. And I'll play along like the good boy I am. Matt, what's good? What's new? What's going on with you?
You know what, Darren? It's been such a while since we've heard from you. I'm actually going to let you go first. Thank you for asking. It was very polite of you. What's new, Darren?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, see, now I have to say Spider-Man before you do, which makes me feel really good. But yeah, like
we're not gonna spoil it, but yeah.
No, yeah, the biggest two things that have been happening with me recently, other than finishing a semester strong, is I have been playing Final Fantasy 14 and Walker. While I can,
Mhm.
while I can being the
Mhm.
key word, and I don't want to spoil our conversation in the news segment because, but you know, the queues have been a huge issue. So I've been playing in the mornings
A
when there's less
a
people.
a a huge issue, you might
A,
say.
a huge issue, a very huge issue. 4,000 huge, 6,000 sometimes, depends on the day.
Jesus,
Um,
dude.
yeah, I tried to play the game a couple days ago. I logged on at 6 o'clock and I didn't get in until 9. So it was actually a 3 hour wait to play the game.
That is massive. Like I don't know if there's ever been a situation, again, we'll get into this later, but to have a game be so incredibly popular so long after its initial launch, and granted it's been kind of buoyed by expansions and stuff, but I don't even know if World of Warcraft has ever had such a resurgence in the fact that like there are more people playing now probably than ever before.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, World of Warcraft has had its share of shaky launches, but usually those are just like glitches and bugs that make the game kind of broken. This is just like
Mhm.
too many people. There's too many people that have tried out the critically acclaimed Final Fantasy 14 that goes has a free trial up to level 60. It's called Heaven's
Damn it,
Word. I
you
messed
bastard.
up the copy pasta, but you get the idea. Um, but when I have been playing it, it's been great. I've been really enjoying it, and I will probably mention it again later once we start talking about Game of the Year. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Um, so then I'll move on, which will segue beautifully into me asking you what's new. But I saw Spider Man. I was just gonna say Spider Man Homecoming. I saw Spider Man No Way Home. Uh, and I saw it with you. And I
Yeah.
really liked it. I really liked the movie. I think without a doubt it's definitely the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film. Um it has a few little it has a little, you know, too much fan service in parts for my liking. Although I kind of knew that it was going to be like that getting into it. But overall, it
Mhm.
still used it in a really wonderful way. And I'm going to shut up so you can talk about Spider-Man even more. Matt, what's new?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now because obviously I went opening at night and then I went again with Darren a few days after for our lovely friend Aaron's birthday. So shout out to Aaron and his birthday.
Happy
Thanks for being
birthday.
born, buddy. But yeah, no, I loved it. I loved how fan servicey it was. Everybody knows that I'm, Spider Man's my favorite superhero. I will go as far as to say it is the best Spider Man movie. Full stop. Um, like by quite a bit. Into the Spider Verse is still a good second, but this one took number one for me. There's just so much love put into this, and there's just so much going on, and I loved every second of it.
It was
I'm
really
I
hard to not
we'll have a
laugh while I listened to you weep beside me through multiple scenes.
mhm. Yep,
Um, it was an
for the
emotional
second
experience
time.
for the second
For
time.
the second time. I wept just as much as I did the first time, and I will probably weep again. But such is the life of a Spider-Man fan. Yeah, I loved it. We won't say anything more than that for now, just because people are still getting out to the movies,
Mhm.
especially with this new panoramic variant and everything going on. It might take people a sec to get out there. So that's a massive shout out to Floor Hugger on Level One Gaming, who every time she goes to say that word because of YouTube stuff, she keeps changing it to something else, and panoramic was the one that she kept pulling out, and it made me laugh every single time. Um, so yeah,
It's
so we
great.
saw that. As for myself, I've been in a really like all over the place mood when it's been coming to games lately, Darren. I like just because things have been so busy for us the last little while. Like as Destiny, Derek and I spoke last week. We were in Mexico for a bit, and then we got back, and the job that Destiny and I have been doing for the last little bit just was crazy busy. So I haven't had a lot of time to play games, but I keep starting things and then just being like, I'm going to start this other thing now. I just can't seem to land on exactly what it was that I want to play. I started 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, really enjoying it, but I just haven't had time to play it. And then obviously getting caught up in all this Spider-Man, aura realm, all this spider goodness going on. I was like, you know what? I bought the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales when it came out, which came with the PS5 remastered version of Spider-Man. And today I was gonna be like, you know what? Today's my first break in probably literally weeks that I have a
Yeah.
couple hours to myself. Uh, quite literally, and I was like, I'm gonna sit down. And I don't want to keep learning new things that which 13 Sentinels requires me to do. I just want to do something mindless. I just want to turn my brain off and enjoy. So I booted up. Well, so that was my plan. But then life happened, and I ended up having to go out for multiple hours to take care of a bunch of things that I didn't want to do, but I had to, and that's life sometimes. And then I got back, and I was like, you know what? I have an hour until my shift. I'm gonna sit down and play some Spider-Man, and then we had a meeting instead. You, Destiny, and I had a little behind the scenes. So I started Spider-Man. I got about
Okay.
30 seconds into the first cutscene, and then had to
Nice.
stop. So
Nice. Nice.
I've like I said, I've been a little bit all over the place, but like I don't know, and I'm also weirdly, which I mean, we're working on our setting the exact date and time for our extra live stream and exactly figuring out what's going to happen. But like that'll probably be next week, which will have more information for you coming very soon. But I don't know why, Darren. I have no earthly reason why, but I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling a bit of a Resident Evil itch, and I don't know why. It's not often that I get one, but there's just something like, you know what? I want to play Resident Evil Village, so perhaps you and I will do that together. We will see, but I don't know. I don't know.
Perhaps.
It's just there's something about it. I'm just kind of feeling like, you know what? I haven't played a horror game in quite some time. Maybe now's the time.
It's the
Maybe
snow
now, maybe
outside
during
subliminally
Christmas.
messaging you.
Yeah, it's a Christmas. It's the Chris Moosey saying like, you
Chris
know what?
Moosey.
Get let's
The,
get horror-y.
the Chris Mouse.
So I
The
don't know,
Chris
Darren.
Mouse that comes by to deliver nightmares and bad dreams for all the boys and girls who have not played anything horror related.
That sounds like some Nordic fairy tale. That just like are the Nords the ones that have like the
Chris
horror
Mouse. The
fairy
Chris
tales?
Mouse comes to visit your nightmares and bring with you.
Why was that both Eastern European and not at the same time?
I'm not good at accents. I can't do them.
It's okay,
But I
dude,
try
so
anyways.
I didn't bother. But yeah, I'm so proud of you, buddy. But yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, my I feel just like my mind's been running at like 100 miles an hour the last couple of weeks, and like now that Christmas is coming up and the holidays are asunder, my mind, I just want to slow down. I just want to sit down and vegetate on the couch for a little while and play some games.
Completely
I want to play Horizon. I friggin' started that a couple of weeks ago, and then restarted that again, and then again life happened. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to this bit of a dry spell that's upcoming to kind of work through that backlog a bit. Because like, hold on, as before we look to the past, let's maybe look to the future. Just because I'm curious, because February and March I already know are
Packed.
But I'm trying to remember what is coming out in January that I may want to play.
I don't remember anything coming out in January specifically. I think it's more February.
So we
March.
have Weird West coming on January 11th.
Okay.
And if you don't remember Weird West, it's a weird Western game. It's like one of those top-down. It's made by a bunch of ex-Arcane devs.
Self-explanatory. It's a weird
Monster
West.
Hunter Rise is coming to PC. God of War is coming to PC. Rainbow Six Extraction, which I don't know if Mop Garden is excited about or not, but I'm not going to play. Pokemon is at the end of January. That's what's upcoming. That's
Arceus Legends or Legends Arceus or
Legends Arceus. Arceus, Darren.
Oh.
Please put respect on Pokegod's name.
Excuse me.
Along with Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, both coming out on January 28th. So so the first game that I actually genuinely probably care about are the end of January, and then shit just goes absolutely sideways after that.
It's just you can't even keep up with the amount of stuff coming out.
I mean, just to give you a quick bird's eye, I mean, February is Life is Strange Remastered, Dying Light 2, Ollie World, Sifu, Horizons Forbidden West, Destiny 2 is the next big expansion, Monarch, which I'm very excited about, Elden Ring. You know what, Darren? I'm starting to feel that friggin' that pull from fucking Elden Ring now. And I know what I'm going to end up doing. I'm going to buy the stupid game, fucking hate it, play it for like 10 hours, get upset by it, put it down, and then get upset with myself for buying it. But I'm gonna do it. And I know it. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna buy it, and I'm gonna love every second of it, and I'm gonna beat it very quickly. I think it's the only game in existence that I could beat faster than you can. And then I will try and convince you to play it because I'm going to talk about how good
You
it
know
is.
what? Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. I'm going to try and beat Elden Ring faster than you.
This is all I had to do to get you to play the game.
Damn it. Damn, you literally got me out of my seat and now sitting not properly, but closer to the mic and the camera because you just angered me with your taunts. I will probably lose, but what's the most broken build in Elden Ring? Anybody in the comments, if you already know what's going to be the best way for me to cheese this?
It's going to be magic. It's going to be magic. It's always magic.
Well, that's the only way I was able to play Demon Souls Remastered.
Demon Souls.
Which one's the one I just played, Darren?
Demon Souls.
I get confused with all these nomenclature of the different Souls likes.
And to make it
Son of a
fair,
bitch.
I will not be a magic user. I don't know if I'm going to do Dex or Strength. I'll have to decide, but it'll be one of those two. I really want to do a Faith Strength build, but those are usually really wonky on a first run. So we'll see what tickles my fancy.
Is Elden Ring going to be a day one for you?
Probably, because doing it day one with the community all fresh is just so exciting because no one knows what's going on in the game. Everyone's still trying to figure out the secrets. Everyone's trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. It's like beautiful. And also like invasions are happening more frequently. Co-ops happening more frequently. It's just this like beautiful community event. So like, I feel like I have to get it day one.
Are you going to try and get a PS5 beforehand, or are you going to play it on PS4? Like, if it's in the cards, are you going to try?
No, I'm going to just get it on PS4. I'm not even going to attempt. I don't think it's possible. So I'm PS4 for me. Good enough.
Good enough. All right, buddy. Well, let's begin our look into the window of what was 2021. What a fucking year, dude. What a year for games. I came into this year being like, there's a couple things I'm excited about. Now we were making our list, and we agreed to talk about 5 games. I have like 10 games. Like I made my top 10, and there's like 5 more on my honorable mentions. It's
really?
Just like this year was because like actually, hold on. I need to pull up my Twitter. Let me pull up my Twitter quick because I had a list going of the amount of games that I have finished in the year in the year of the Lord 2021. And let me just double check what it was.
Pull up my list too. I have it on my phone. My list was not very long this year, but also you just, as you made the joke, unfortunately very true joke, that I'm spending most of my time playing Final Fantasy, so it's not a large list. Also, a lot of games I played were just games I played before, or games that came out previously that I'm catching up on.
Mm-hmm. I finished 40 games this year as of yet. I finished 40, and that's like there's some really big games that I own that I just haven't gotten back to, like Eastward and Death's Door, and obviously Final Fantasy that I haven't gotten back to yet.
I only finished 25. I only finished 25 so far. It was a very small year for me. And it's interesting because you're saying it's a big year. And I mean, I believe you. I'd like to, once we've done our list, have you just list off everything you had, like with no explanation, just because like I had a really hard time coming up with a list this year. There was not a lot of stuff that I've played that came out this year. I wasn't super impressed by everything. So I would like to hear what you played just in like a block.
Yeah, okay, fine. Do we want to do that first, or do you want to do that at the end?
Yeah, okay. Tell me every game you played that came out this year. Not that you played this year, that actually genuinely came out this year.
Okay, I'm going to include Cyberpunk just because it came out like in December of last year, and I finished it in January of this year.
Sure.
Okay. Kentucky Route Zero on Switch. Yakuza Like a Dragon, Disjunction, Nuts, Bowser's Fury. I'll isolate that out of Super Mario 3D World because that is the newer part of this.
Sure.
Judgment, I finished this year. It didn't come out this year, so I'll leave Judgment off. Persona 5 Strikers, Concrete Genie is another one that I just caught up to. Demon Souls is, again, I started late last year when it came out in November, but it took me forever to finish it.
Right.
Lost Words, Yakuza Kiwami 2 is another one I caught up with. Before Your Eyes, Monster
Some
Hunter
of these
Rise,
games are
Trails of
not
Cold
games
Steel 3.
that came out this year.
I know. I'm still going through them.
Oh, okay,
Returnal,
okay.
Final Fantasy VII Intermission. I'm just going through my list right now. Chicory,
Okay.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Dark Deity, It Takes Two, Bark, Dreamscaper, Button City, Fire Tonight, 12 Minutes, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Garden Story, Kraken Academy, Behind the Frame, Wildermyth, Deathloop, Chris Tales, Kena, Bridge of Spirits, World's End Club. Again, didn't come out this year, but I played this year. Forza Horizon 5, Bright Memory Infinite, Halo Infinite. Haha, that's kind of funny that those went back to back. And Metroid Dread.
Okay, yeah, that is actually quite a few games. And a few of those
And those
games
are all
are
games that I finished.
Right.
Like I finished all of them this year. I played more that I just didn't get to finishing, but yeah.
And there are a few of those games on that list that I wanted to play, but I just didn't get around to. Like some of them because I didn't have a PS5. Like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I would love to have played it if I had a PS5. And Demon Souls, same thing. And Resident Evil Village, you didn't list because you haven't played it, but I purposely did not buy Resident Evil Village because I wanted a PS5 first.
I fucking forgot Lost Judgment. I didn't put this on the list. Lost Judgment I actually finished, and that just came out a couple months ago.
And also Persona 5 Strikers was a game that I should have played, but I never ended up getting at the time. I can't remember where I was busy playing. Probably just busy playing Final Fantasy.
And that's what I mean. Like there's this year had a bunch of surprises. I think this year more than not was a lot of games that I didn't expect to play or to like as much as I did that connected with me in a way that I wasn't expecting them to.
Well, you look at like the list of Game of the Year award games from like all the other different news outlets, and it was a good year, I think. Like, but at the same time, there's no game that came out this year that I would say like definitively screams Game of the Year for me. Like all these games are good games, but none of them are like, that's the Game of the Year. Bravo.
Yeah.
Like masterpiece.
We didn't have a God of War. We didn't have a Breath of the Wild. There wasn't one that everybody was looking at being like, this is the Game of the Year this year, right? There wasn't like a true, there was a lot of really, really good to really amazing stuff, but there wasn't that one that everybody was like, this is it. This is Game of the Year. So to quickly, because I like that you brought that up, Darren, because I'm going to go down IGN's list very quick for their top games of the year.
Yeah.
The ones that they had nominated for GOTY was Forza Horizon 5, Deathloop, Halo Infinite, Hitman 3, Inscription, which is another one that I keep wanting to play and keep hearing about but haven't gotten around to.
Same.
It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, Returnal, and that was their kind of their top games.
Yeah. I wanted to play so many of those, but I just didn't play them because I wanted the next gen experience and I just didn't have a console. I think the lack of PS5s or lack of Series X, like the lack of availability, might also actually be contributing to like what's taking some of these games so long to come out, because I mean, I'm purposely not buying stuff that's multi-platform because I'm like, well, I'll just play it when I get a PS5. And then like Deathloop, I can't play at all.
And you also have this like really weird, and I'm hearing it more and more as the year goes on, this almost like Game Pass effect where people are like, I've heard some of the folks over at Level 1 and some other people I saw online too that were like, I'm not going to buy it now. I'm going to wait and play it on Game Pass next year. Right? Because it's like, you inherently know that Deathloop is an easy buy because again, now it's owned by Microsoft. You know it's going to be there. But there's a lot of other games too that are people are like, I'm sure this is going to come to Game Pass eventually. I'll play it then. So it's like, it's this weird effect that it's having now on people purchasing. And I mean, a lot of these games are still going to sell regardless of how many people are going to fucking wait for it to play it next time later. But like, yeah, it's an interesting that like Game Pass has gotten to a point now in the conversation where people are straight up being like, I'll wait and play it when it's there.
Well, it makes sense. And Game Pass is going to continue to be such a big thing that people want to participate in because games keep getting more expensive. I know for a fact that one of the big reasons that I play games I can't even talk. My brain is broken today. I know one of the big reasons that I did not play very many games this year is not just because I play Final Fantasy, but because games are so expensive. I am buying fewer games, and as game prices go up, I know I will continue to buy fewer games because I just don't have the money to be keeping up with games the way I did back in like the 360 PS3 era.
Well, it's also like we also have to speak. It's more myself than yourself in Destiny, but like I also like we also come from a very like privileged standpoint where now we're at a point where there are publishers and developers who do send us games to play, and like I would not have played as many games as I had because just because there's a good chunk of them that I reviewed and we got codes for, right? So
Sure,
like that's
that's
also
true too.
like an asterisk I want to put on as well because again, like there's a number of these games that I would have been waiting for sales on just because again, games are expensive and there's a lot of them coming out nowadays. So that's also I want to put that out there as well because like that also makes an impact, right? That also makes a difference.
Right.
But without further ado, Darren, let's get into it. We're gonna go through our top five.
Yes.
We're gonna go back and forth. I'll start with you, and we don't have to like save your game of the year for the end, but I don't really think we need to number them before that unless you really wanted to.
I've ranked them already, actually.
Okay,
but I've only done
then I
5
have mine
games.
ranked too. Let's
okay.
Let's start with number 5.
All right, so number 5 for me is going to be kind of like an honorable mention. I did this because I know Matt has 5, and I wanted to pick 5 because 5 is just a good number of games. Okay, it's half a 10.
It's a good number.
It's a good number.
Look at us doing math on this podcast.
And so number 5, although it's my 5, I want the listeners to treat it like an honorable mention because I haven't actually finished it yet. But it's Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker. I know I put Final Fantasy on my list last year as well, because the thing is, it is just that good. Like, people say it's a lot of hype, and I know it's become a big meme to talk about it, but I'm here to say it's not just hype. It's actually that good. If you ignore the fact that I can't physically play the game at some points, I'm talking about just the game. Let's put aside the server issues. Endwalker, I'm about halfway through it so far, and it is living up to the quality of Shadowbringers. It really is. Shadowbringers is one of the best Final Fantasy stories I've ever experienced. It deserves to be treated like a mainline game because the story is that good. And Endwalker is easily continuing the quality in story. It's easily continuing the quality in dungeon design and boss fight design. In fact, I think so far the dungeons and boss fights I've done are better than the boss fights and dungeons in Shadowbringers. It like is kind of crazy how they kind of just improve every single expansion. I'm excited to finish it. My year could not have been as enjoyable as it was without Final Fantasy, and kudos to Square Enix for making a game that's so good and so popular that there's too many people and you can't play it.
So here's my question, Darren, and it's one that I'm very, very curious about your answer about. Do you think when you finish it, is there a chance it could have taken the number 1 spot on your list? And again, like you obviously don't know exactly where it's heading, and like blah 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 blah. But let's assume that it at least lives up to the line that you have in your mind, right? Let's just say it matches Shadowbringers. Let's say that.
Sure.
Not
or just slightly surpasses.
Do you think
we'll say it slightly surpasses Shadowbringers?
Sure. Do you think that this could have been number 1 if you had time to finish it beforehand?
No.
Okay.
It couldn't actually, because what I put as number 1 is one of the best video games I've ever played in my entire life. And I'm not ready to put Final Fantasy 14 in that category, especially because I talk about how much I love the Final Fantasy 14 story, and I don't want to belittle Final Fantasy, but I have played games where I've enjoyed the story and I've enjoyed the game more than Final Fantasy 14. So these other games I genuinely like better. Even if it surpassed Shadowbringers, this would deserve to be in my number 5 slot.
Okay. Before we go on any farther, I want to do something. I want us to guess each other's game of the year. Just again, we won't go into anything more than that, but I want you to guess what you think mine is, and I'll guess what I think yours is before we get any deeper in. And to be fair, I knew Endwalker would be in your honorable mention /5 spot, so I felt like I was waiting to see what you were gonna do.
Sure.
So like I before we get any further into the list, I want you to guess what I'm going to rank as my number 1, and I want to guess what you're gonna have.
Oh my god.
So if you want a second to think, I kind of have an answer loaded that I'm not certain about.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so you want me to go first? I'll guess yours.
yeah, guess mine, guess mine.
So for me, I'm seriously split between Metroid Dread and Psychonauts 2 because I
Okay.
feel like that's going to be 1 and 2. I don't know. I honestly don't know where you're going to land on 3 and 4. But I feel like those games, depending on the day and depending on whatever, I feel like either one of those games could be your game of the year if it not been for the other one releasing like within 2 months, So I'm going to say that Metroid Dread is your number one, with Psychonauts being number two. And that's not to take away from Psychonauts, but I think it's interesting because they're both games that you've been waiting for so long, as in like a classic 2D Metroid and, well, a sequel to Psychonauts.
Right.
And I feel like while as much as you love and care about Psychonauts 2, I think there's just something about Metroid that will end up with it in your top spot. So that's what I'll say. I'll say Metroid is going to be your game of the year, with Psychonauts being in two, but I'm not entirely confident because I could very easily see those two being switched.
Oh, I'm so
And again,
excited.
don't tell me
I'm
if I'm
so
right.
excited.
Just
I'm not gonna say if you're right or wrong. Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
For you, it's a lot harder because again, like it's not like I think there's a game that came out this year that really screams Matt either. Like at least with Metroid Dread and Psychonauts, like those are games that I've been waiting for so long, so I think it's easier to try and make those guesses for me. Uh,
Uh-huh.
well, it's really hard for me to guess for you this year. Like if I had to pick two games, if I had to pick three, I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of no. I figured it out. I cracked the code. I just cracked the fucking code, okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yakuza Like a Dragon. I was just thinking in my brain about I was like, it could be Deathloop, it could be Lost Judgment, it could be It Takes Two. But then all of a sudden I remembered you talk about Yakuza Like a Dragon because that did come out this year, didn't it? Or you treated it like it came out this year because you finished it this year. So
So
it came out in
it
2020.
originally came out. It came out at the end of last year, but the PS5 version came out in March.
And you
So that's what
played
I'll say.
okay. But did you finish it last year? You did finish it last year too, didn't you?
No,
No, you finished it this year. Yeah, then it's Yakuza
I
Like a
did finish
Dragon.
it this year. Yeah.
The Yakuza series is a series that you've cared about for a long time, and I think that uh, I remember you saying distinctly that this is like the best Yakuza game. It's one of your favorite games. Like just the combat. I know how much you love JRPGs. You like this combat system better than the brawler system of Yakuza 0 and 1 and all those games. So you're like, no, it's Yakuza Like a Dragon. Forget Take Two, not Take Two. Forget It Takes Two. Forget Deathloop. They don't count anymore. I'm
All
settled.
right.
But I think that
Okay.
It Takes Two and Deathloop. What was the third one I said? I said Deathloop, It Takes
Lost
Two,
Judgment.
and Lost Judgment. I think, yeah, I think Deathloop and It Takes Two will be on your list though.
Okay.
So what's
All
your
right.
number
Well, let's
five?
get into it. My number 5 is a game that broke me significantly this year in a way that no game ever has before. I've gotten emotional playing games, and like I've cried playing games, but there isn't a game that has just left me weeping pretty much for like half of the game. And it's one that affected Destiny and I profoundly when we reviewed it. But Lost Words Beyond the Page is my number 5 this year.
Yeah.
Just because again, like I think a lot of what this year was for me was games that I either didn't know about or were announced suddenly or whatever, right? But there were games that I had no expectation about coming into this year. Lost Words is one of the most beautifully written and beautifully executed games I've ever played. For all its heart wrenching glory, let's just say. Like it's a game about a girl struggling with sickness in her family, and it's like 50% of the game, if you haven't watched our review, 50% of the game takes place in almost like her diary, and you're like almost like platforming on her words as she writes them, while the other 50% of the game takes place in like this mystical world in like this in the story that she's writing. And the way that those things kind of come and go, and like by all means, like it is not a perfect game, but I think the emotional impact it had on me, and on a lot of the games on my list this year kind of fall into this same realm of like it crushed me. Like I had a hard time like playing through that game just because like I had to take breaks just to like catch my breath. And I don't want this to be a reason that anyone stays away from this game, because I do think it is profoundly emotionally intelligent, and it has a certain way that like even when it hurts, you're going through a lot of the things with the character as it happens. I think it's beautiful. It's on top of like its themes, like graphically it's just also gorgeous. The storybook, like the diary section specifically, like the fantasy world stuff looks good, it looks pretty, but like the storybook stuff, like the diary stuff specifically, just looks incredible. It is not a long game, but it is one that has stayed with me from early on in this year, and just like completely, like even still just like talking about it now, I can feel myself getting emotional again, just because of how well that game was put together and how special it is.
Yeah,
um
what's so
so yeah.
beautiful about this game is that I know it is very emotionally taxing, but by the end, I think it is like a healthy experience. Like I don't think this is something that's going to I think
Mhm.
you will feel better for playing the game. Like it's an experience that is really hard, but by the end, you feel like it was worth something. Like it was meaningful. So I don't like, exactly. I don't want yeah.
It's cathartic in that way, right? It's cathartic
Yes.
in that way. If you have never experienced what these characters go through, it's one of the things where you will, right? Like
Mhm.
there isn't, it's not a question of is this ever going to happen to me. There are parts of that game that you're like, this will happen at some point to someone I care about, and it's just learning how to deal with that. And I don't know. Anyways, it's beautiful, and I know that you played it too, Darren, and I know that you also did really enjoy it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's actually beautifully said. It is a positive experience by the end of it, and it's a cathartic one. Like you like it really was like an emotional release by the end of it. So Lost Words is my number 5.
I'm really shocked as well that Lost Words is not a game that I hear being talked about in an awards capacity. I don't think very many people played it at
Mm-hmm.
all. And I'm really
Nope.
disappointed because that game flew under a lot of people's radars and people really should play that game. It deserves to be played. Don't know why it didn't show up more places.
Yep. And the one thing I will say is that like it just came to Game Pass, I think in October or November. So it is now, for anybody who's on Xbox or on PC, it is more readily available now than it was before. Along with the fact that like, and I'll quickly dip into my number 7, which was Before Your Eyes, which is again a similar indie darling, which I'm very happy is now very much so getting its up and coming. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about it the last couple of weeks. It
Nice.
seems like there's this big groundswell around it now. And again, that's another game that's incredibly emotional, has such an interesting hook to it with its control, eye control, where every time you blink during a certain section, time moves forward. I don't want to go on for too long about that because it is not my top 5, but I just think that those two games in my mind are linked in such a fundamental way, because I also played them back to back, so that was a lot of fucking crying. But I'm glad that Before Your Eyes is now getting its due, and I hope that Lost Words gets the same treatment because I think it deserves it.
Yeah.
What's your number 4, Darren?
Matt, I'm so sorry. My number 4 is Metroid Dread.
Fuck me.
My
No
number
way.
4. My number 4 is Metroid Dread. Uh,
What?
yeah. So you're right. Metroid Dread obviously had to make it onto my list. But
Uh-huh.
I'll explain why it's not higher, because I know most people know that Metroid is one of my favorite video game series of all time. I love the Metroid games. Anytime a Metroidvania game comes out, I obsess over them. Um, and Metroid Dread was probably the best way Nintendo ever could have come back to 2D side-scrolling Metroid style. If anyone has never played a 2D Metroid game, Metroid Dread shows why they are so fun, why they're so well done. And honestly, Metroid, like what makes Dread so good is the polish. It feels so polished. Like it
Mhm.
is polished to such a sheen that it shows why the genre is called Metroidvania. Like it came
Nice.
proud and was like, let me show you how it's done. Let me show you why I'm the daddy. I'm the mommy. Um Man, I'm really giving out some good cringe content over here. So
I still can't get over the fact that it's your number 4. Now I'm like frantically racking my brain with what the fuck else came out this year that had Darren written all over it. Now I'm like, fuck, is it Phoenix Wright? Fuck, what the fuck is it? Sorry, go back to you talking about Metroid Dread because I can't focus on anything right now. My mind hurts.
yeah, no, the boss fights are amazing, and the level design is amazing. It's like it's a very long Metroid game for a 2D side-scrolling, yet it's got the speed running built into it. I've already tried to speed run it a bunch of times. You get something for beating the game in under 4 hours, for normal
Shit.
mode and for hard mode. I beat the game in
Mhm.
4 hours and 6 minutes on hard mode, and I was so mad. I have to go back
No.
and beat it again. But then I got distracted by other games, so I haven't had a chance to go up often. But I think the reason why it's not higher is there are still some things that bug me a little bit about it. Like, I don't want to get into it for
Uh-huh.
spoiler reasons, but like the story I think has some kind of weird contrivances and goes off the rails a little bit. And I have some personal, like, very nitpicky problems with the way Samus is portrayed a little bit. And
Uh-huh.
also, I do still think that Mercury Steam has some problems when it comes to art direction, and like level
Okay.
design,
Yeah.
because things like Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion, like, you play them and you almost don't really have to look at your map very often, because the world is designed in a way where these like locations stick in your brain. Whereas with Metroid
Right.
Dread, I had to look at that map like every 2 goddamn seconds. Like, it was
Yeah.
it's funny because the game is also another reason it holds it back a little bit. The game is way more linear, in my opinion, than any other 2D Metroid game, other than Fusion, maybe. Fusion probably a little more
Hmm.
linear. But like, you're
Hmm.
just going in one direction the whole game. It's a big open world, but like the game cuts you off way too frequently. Um so I think it's just because I'm so nitpicky about the Metroid series that it ended up in Metroid 4. It ended up in number 4. Um
Fair
but
enough.
yeah, what did you think of
And
Metroid
again,
Dread?
like I really liked it. I think it stayed with me probably a little bit less than I expected. Like the time that I had with it, I really enjoyed. And I like ripped through it. I love how agile and fluid the
Mhm.
movement is. I love how quick, Samus feels. The
It's
combat is solid. I
it's
do
probably
think its
definitely the best
controls are a
2D,
little,
like, gameplay wise. It's the best 2D Metroid gameplay wise, for sure.
yeah. I think that just some of its controls are a little bit wonky. That double
Mhm.
jump fucking sucks. It
It
sucks.
does. It does.
Um, And like it's just hard because now there's so many contenders in this kind of Metroidvania space
Mhm.
that like between things like and I granted it's not one to one, but things like Hades,
Yeah.
things like what's it called?
Hollow Knight
Um sh-
and
Hollow
Ori and the
Knight,
Blind
what's the other
Forest,
one? Dead Cells. Dead
Dead
Cells,
Cells.
Ori, and even shit like I said, Hades and Dreamscaper, which is more of like a 3D isometric view, but again still
Yeah.
pulls a lot from
Mhm.
from what that series is.
Yeah.
Um so for me, I think there's just so much competition now that Metroid came back and it was really good, but there was
Yeah.
something there for me that I kept being like, it's a little short, but at the same time, like some of the things that it sets up just don't feel that rewarding once you eventually
Mhm.
get there. The twist is something that I was like, I saw that coming while like I feel like the moments in that game that a lot of people who really care about the series are excited about. If you don't know that lore, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that
Mhm.
happened. Like like
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
things there that the game kind of that does that. Like again, for longtime fans, I'm sure it's massive, but like for me, I don't think lore when I think Metroid, if that makes sense. And maybe that's
Sure.
just for me as an outsider. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
yeah. That makes sense. So what's your number 4?
Um, my number 4 is Tales of Arise.
Oh, I forgot about
And
that game.
it shocks me that it's at number 4. Like I really
Yeah.
I I had a long kind of sit with myself while I was making this list. And Tales of Arise is easily the best that Tales has ever been. It is truly like a next step for the franchise, for it to be getting as much love as it has, and for it to be like on the Game Awards stage and this many people talking about a Tales game baffles me, because like I mean, I've been a fan of Tales since, since Symphonia, and while it was always understood amongst the JRPG fanatics that this is a fantastic series, to see it in the mainstream in such a fundamental way, like Tales of Arise really is like the Persona 5 moment for this series, and I really hope that this is just a great, a thing. um I loved 75 to 80% of this game. It's an JRPG that doesn't overstay its welcome. You could beat it in under 40 hours, which for
Oh
a big
wow.
JRPG is,
Yeah.
yeah, like, and that's what I mean. Like, it respects your time. It has a very amazing world. I think for me, the last act falls apart in a way that just like, because the first, basically, like, you have part 1 and part 2 in the game, and this is how the game defines itself. Part 1 is so phenomenal and does so much to kind of buck the idea of what this game is set up as. And it has stuff like, like you're going around to these different areas and you're going to fight the boss, but the way that it plays with some of those themes and the way that it changes depending on where you go is just brilliantly done. And then the part 2 of the game just goes straight into classic JRPG territory to a fault, where the first part of the game just, it plays around with its ideas so much to then go into a very linear, this is what this is, to a final dungeon that, in my opinion, and like a final boss fight that is kind of underwhelming. And again, this is all still very good, because
Yeah.
again, the
It
entirety of
ended
Tales of Arise
made your
is
top 4, so it can't be that bad.
exactly, it's very, very good. It's just, I think that for me, how strong part 1 is compared to how good part 2 is, I would say the dissonance there kind of broke it in my brain and ended up leaving that game with a little bit more of a sour note in my mouth. And again, not to say that anything's bad, I think it was like an expectations thing. um that, yeah, I love the game, I really do. I do think it's the best Tales game. um I just wish part 2 was a little bit different, which is why it ended up ultimately outside of my top 3 at number 4, just because, again, the game is stellar, the combat's fantastic, there's so much that it's doing right. It's just that part 2 gets a little too JRPG in a way that the rest of the game doesn't really support, in my
Still
opinion.
good on was it Bandai Namco that does Tales series?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good
Yeah,
on
Bamco.
Bandai Namco for actually improving the Tales series, because I know the Tales series has been beloved for quite some time, but it's never been in the upper
Mm-hmm.
tier of JRPGs. So like they finally cracked the code. Good for them.
They have. They have, and this genuinely makes me so stoked for whatever's coming next, because if they take this as a blueprint and just build upon it, I can't wait. I don't want to see a Tales of Arise 2. I am very happy with the story that I got and the characters. But I want them to take the ideas that this game has built and then move on into what will come next, and I'm sure that they will.
Sure.
What's your number 3?
I cheated for this one. I cheated. My number 3 is actually not a full game. My number 3 is a DLC that I'm awarding
You
Game of the
bastard.
Year. It is Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye DLC. Is
I completely
my
fucking
number
forgot
3.
that that was a thing. Okay. Okay.
So I honestly think it deserves to be nominated, even though it's a DLC pack, because it is entirely self-contained. It is the length of some indie games, and it is the exact same stuff that made Outer Wilds so phenomenal, but just more of it. And I know some people have had problems with that, where they're like, it's just that, but more, like, who cares? But what
Mm-hmm.
Echoes of the Eye showed me is that Outer Wilds is so good that just more of the same feels freaking transcendental. Like, it is absolutely one of the best DLC expansions I've ever played for any video game, and it's actually incorrect to call it completely more of the same, because the story that is told in Outer Wilds thematically and like emotionally is very different from the rest of the game. And I wish I could talk to more about it without going to spoilers, but the whole thing about these games is that you don't want to know. You want to keep it a secret. The whole thing is self-discovery. So for those of you who don't know Outer Wilds, it's a game about you're an explorer going off into your solar system, and you're looking for like the remnants of lost civilizations, and it's basically an archaeology anthropology game where there's no combat. You're just going around and you're exploring and gaining information to learn more about how the universe works. There is a twist. There's a bit of a time loop twist. I'm sorry for that minor spoiler, but there's a time loop twist to it, and just because there's no combat doesn't mean that there's not things that are dangerous out there. And the Echoes of the Eye goes for more of a horror angle, and it goes for more of a dark, creepy reflection of the story that's told in the main series. And I don't think I'm ever going to play a game that is so like introspective and represents space exploration and the hunt for knowledge as well as this game. I've heard really good things about the game The Forgotten City, which I have not played, and I do plan to play it at some point. But Echoes of the Eye, one frickin' DLC is better than like 90% of the games I played this year. If you liked Outer Wilds, you have to play this goddamn DLC.
All right. Yeah, I tried to get into Outer Wilds, and I know like we've had this conversation before. The camera controls and stuff, especially in the flight, made me quite motion sick. But I also just like as the kind of the more time I've spent away from it, it's just not probably a game for me.
The whole game is one puzzle.
I appreciate why it's special. I appreciate why it's special and appreciate why people like it. What? You and me running long?
So Matt, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is again a game that as I was kind of coming into it, as I was starting it, I was already done with it. This is a game that we had so much marketing and trailers and shit thrown at us for so long that I felt like I was already fatigued by this game before even playing it. And like I was vocally so, both on here and on the PlayStation Drive. Whenever Deathloop came up, I was kind of like, just let me play the fucking game already. I was just so tired of hearing about it. I was so tired of seeing it. It was to the point where the game was like imminently coming out and we were still seeing fucking new trailers for it. And all of that washed away in the first half an hour from when I actually started playing that game. I'm not some massive arcane person. Like I really liked Dishonored 1. I played it. I finished it. I started Dishonored 2 a couple of times, and for no fault of the game itself, I just don't think it's what I wanted at the time. Never was really much into Prey or anything, but Deathloop hit me in such a visceral way so fast that I was addicted to it throughout its runtime. Colt and Juliana's relationship and the voice acting on both of their parts was phenomenal. The world is weird and kooky, but also vibrant and fun. The gameplay itself is just awesome. And like, excuse me, while there is kind of like one true path through the game, experimenting with it, playing with it, and figuring out all the puzzle pieces of it being like, okay, if I do this in the morning and then but I also have to make sure I do this in this place. But and like as that all starts to come together, it's such a riot and it's so much fun. And while I know people have some issues with the ending, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I think the ending was actually perfectly fine. But just like the amount of fun that I had playing that game and speccing my character, my Colt the way that I wanted Colt to kind of function, depending on what kind of runes and what kind of magic you were using. On top of the fact that I actually spent a decent amount of time with the multiplayer, and I'm not usually one that chases the multiplayer in games like this. But playing as Juliana and kind of invading into other Colt's worlds and just kind of that back and forth, this game gave me some of my like biggest like, oh my god moments in gaming this year. Like I was doing one run where I was in the final part of the final mission, and there's a point where you can have multiple visionaries in the same place. And as I was trying to figure out what to do, a Juliana invaded my game, and I started to panic. I had been like, again, a run in Deathloop can take like an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how quickly you move through the certain sections. She invades my game, and she actually ends up killing one of the visionaries for me. And then we end up having this massive fight on a rooftop where she accidentally kills herself by vaulting off of the roof. And I ended up, it was just one of those things where it's just, I was shaking. Like my palms were so sweaty the entire time. It's so much fun. It is such a riot, start to finish. There's so much about that game that it does right. And like, I'm so happy I got to experience it at a time where there was a lot of, invasions and stuff going on. And I hope that this game really does get like kind of like a second win when it does come to Game Pass, because I do think it is ultimately something really special. And again, kind of running with the theme of my year, it's a game that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did by the time the credits ran. So Deathloop was my number 3.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a game that I want to play so badly if I had a PS5. I really hope I didn't miss the boat on the multiplayer, because I would like to experience some actual human invasions rather than just the AI invasions. But it looks so cool.
I promise you, Darren, if you're playing, I will load back up just so I can invade you and haunt your dreams.
Yes,
What's your number
thank you.
2?
So Matt, my number 2 is
Son of a bitch,
Psychonauts
Darren.
2.
Fucking what the fuck is number 1?
So, number 2 is Psychonauts 2. You're gonna be so mad when I say what my number 1 is, because it's. I'll give you a hint leading up to number 1. It's not a game.
Don't give me a hint. Don't give me a hint.
Oh no. Okay, fine. No hints. No hints. But Psychonauts 2 is my number 2. Psychonauts 2 is a game that I am very disappointed did not get more awards from different news outlets, because honestly, Psychonauts 2 proves platformers still work. It proves that AAA games can still be made with heart and with uniqueness, and it proves that single player games can be inventive. It feels like old school game design, but in the best way possible, where the gameplay is modernized, but the I guess the game direction and the focus of the game is just telling a good goddamn story. Like Psychonauts 2 lived up to all the hype of Psychonauts 1 and surpassed it. It's a better game than Psychonauts 1. It tells a better story. It's better written. The graphics are amazing. Like Psychonauts 2, for me, and I know this is not going to be an opinion that everyone shares, but for me, Psychonauts 2 makes me nostalgic for the era where I feel like games nowadays don't try and take risks anymore. And this is a game that takes so many risks and it pays off. If you are a fan of unique, quirky comedy platformers, there are very few options out there, and Psychonauts 2 it makes me emotional. It's like this emotional, thought-provoking story, perfectly plays off the first game, and it's just like I haven't played a game like Psychonauts 2 since Psychonauts 1. So it met as a fan of the original, it met every single one of my expectations, and then it succeeded in exceeding all of them. And my only complaint about the game is it ended, because now I can't re-experience it for the first time. Because what a magical playthrough that was.
And you know what I'll say, as someone who's never played the original Psychonauts and jumped into Psychonauts 2, well, granted, I didn't finish it. I did enjoy my time with it, and I have to say that, like, for anybody who is curious about it, I don't really think you need Psychonauts 1, especially because Psychonauts 2 does such a great job of kind of catching you up. So even if you've never experienced it, but you've been curious about it, I would recommend to check it out, just because it does do some really cool stuff. While it ultimately wasn't for me, I appreciate it for what it was, but I can think a lot of people could really enjoy it if they give it an opportunity. But Darren, the one thing that I will say, are you really surprised more outlets didn't give it an award if you didn't give it your number 1 spot? Come on, buddy.
That's fair. That's fair. But you'll see by my number 1, this should be the true 2020. Sorry, whoa, what the hell? It's not 2020. This should be the true 2021 game of the year. But I'm late to the party on something else that's going to get my number 1 spot.
I'm so fucking curious. Okay, but for my number 2, talking about games that lived up to no, fuck this. This game didn't have much hype. I was one of the only true believers of this fucking game since we got it unveiled and shown off for the first time and released just a few months later. This is a game that a lot of people went into with such low expectations, and I was expecting a solid 6 to a 7. I'm so happy that Guardians of the Galaxy is my number 2 game of the year, because it is fucking fantastic. Again, as a Marvel fan, to say that this is my favorite, iteration of these characters that it outlives both the movie versions and the comic versions by taking bits of both and melding them into something that's emotionally mature while also inherently stupid. Like this game does things in a way that, like, you look at these characters and you're like, shit, these are who these characters are supposed to be. They're brilliantly acted. The game looks fantastic. The story that it takes you on is surprisingly deep and emotionally capable, while also just accepting and learning with these characters what it is that they're going through. Now, again, it's not perfect. The combat, I personally really enjoyed the combat. I can understand why some people will say that the combat gets a little bit stale, but it also uses like licensed music in such a brilliant way that, again, I think licensed music in a game outside of something like a Tony Hawk or a sports game is difficult to use. This uses it creatively, inventively. It has moments, especially in some of the boss encounters or in some of the fights, that almost feel Metal Gear Solid-esque, with them asking you to think about what it is the fuck that you're doing and what's the actual way out of this scenario, because it does play with you. There are conversations in that game that I'm still thinking about just because of how well put together they are and how emotionally vulnerable these characters can become without it ever feeling cheap or saccharine or bullshit. It has a fantastic runtime. Your choices actually matter to a degree. While they won't, change where you're going. Things that happen along the way and certain scenarios that can play out entirely differently, just because of choices that you make and how you handle certain situations, allies or not, or different things that happen. It is fantastic, and I'm so happy because of that really poor showing at E3 to it becoming my number 2 game of the year, and it has so many people, and it got it won like best narrative at the game of the year at the Game Awards and stuff. Like there's this game is paramount in its ability to, just like the Guardians, really, when it comes down to it, to shock you, to surprise you, and to what you think is going to be just becoming something truly fantastic. I loved Guardians, and I want more people to play it. It's on sale all over the place, so go check it out if you're at all a Marvel fan, or even if not, if you're just a fan of a good, emotionally mature, put together story. Check it out because it's fucking worth it.
Yeah, it's a game that I have not played. I should play. I will play because I am a fan of Marvel as well. I'm a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy comics and the movies. And I am very happy that Square Enix actually managed to put out a Marvel video game that isn't full of controversy and poor gameplay and problems. Like, maybe this
Yep.
is what the Avengers should have been in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Darren, what's your game of the year, you fuck?
So, like I said, my game of the year is not a game that technically came out in 2021. So, it's a little cheaty, but a version of it was released in 2021. And this version was the version that I played in 2021. And the game is Disco Elysium.
Okay. Fuck, I forgot that you played that this year. That makes
Yeah.
sense now. Go on. I'm not upset
Yes.
no more. That's a good game for it to take it.
That's what I also mean. Like, Disco Elysium's not nominated for any awards because it came out in 2019. So if you pretend Disco Elysium doesn't count, Psychonauts 2 is the true game of the year. But for me, unfortunately, Psychonauts can be beat by Disco Elysium because Disco Elysium is genuinely one of the best video games ever made. Just hands down. And like, it is a masterpiece of art and game design and narrative that belongs in a damn museum. Like, when people say video games are art, this is what they mean. This game has one of the best stories I've ever had in a game. Best narrative, best voice acting, like the art direction is insane. It's like you're playing a noir painting on drugs. It's so impossible to describe because it's so many different things. But ultimately it's a game about choice and gray morality and doing the right thing and holding on to the past and forgetting the past and moving forward. There's like so many beautiful themes. It's one of the freaking funniest games I have ever played. I was laughing hysterically at so many moments at just the absurdity of what I was witnessing. And because it's a game that is narrative first, of course, like to people who don't know, it's an isometric CRPG. It's a top-down
Mm-hmm.
game where there's no combat, it's just talking. The whole game is just talking to people. And all your stats are based on talking. And they're all like just pages and pages of text, but it's so good you don't care. And in fact, it's
Mm-hmm.
better off because it's just text, because they were able to put 100% focus into the narrative to create a story where your build matters, your choices matter, everything matters to a degree that other games that say their choices matters could not even dream to be like
Mm-hmm.
this, because they didn't have to worry about making like crazy animations or gameplay or 3D environments. They put all their focus on the narrative. So the narrative is perfection. This game is perfection. Everyone should play it. It should be taught in classes. They need to take this game and put it in a university and teach courses on it. It's that good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's so funny because this isn't like a me type game. Disco Elysium really isn't like
Mhm.
a game that I usually go for. And which is why I'm telling anybody who's at all curious, because I do agree. I think it is one of the best stories in gaming. I think it is one of the best experiences in gaming. The amount of choice and the way that you can change your character. The fact that I died 30 seconds into my first playthrough because I made my character so smart and so charismatic, but so weak physically that because I didn't turn the fan off when I reached for my tie, which was stuck upon it as it was spinning, my character had a heart attack from trying to get the tie and died. And I had to immediately make an entire new build. Like just the amount that that game gives you just to like live in and play in its world. There's going to be times where you're just going to be scratching your head, confused about what to do. There's going to be times where you're just not sure where to go next. But the way that the world kind of evolves around you, Darren, 100%. I completely forgot that you played that this year. But I'm not shocked at all. I was scratching my head as to what the fuck was going to be your number one. This makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. This game should be taught. Everyone should experience this game. Even if it doesn't sound like it's a game for you, you might be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said, Matt. What is your
Mm-hmm.
number one?
Yeah, you got it. It's Yakuza 7. It's Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yes!
I came into this game. The fact that this started out as an April Fool's joke and then became a real thing, because the first time we had ever seen Yakuza 7, Yakuza Like a Dragon, was on April Fool's, where they're like, haha, we're making Yakuza turn based. And then they turned around and a few months later announced that this game was an actual thing, and that is actually what they were doing. I cannot think of a singular franchise that on its seventh mainline game says, you know what, we're changing fucking the entire way that the battles take place. You like the fact that like Yakuza 0 through 6, the battles are so fundamentally part of the experience, and because it is kind of, beat the shit out of like waves and waves and waves of enemies as you run around town. So for them to be like, you know what, we're gonna make it into a JRPG, we're gonna make it into a turn-based JRPG, is fucking brilliant. And the fact that they execute it so well, like the world is part of it. If you're in a fight and you run past something that's on the ground, your character will pick it up and use that as their, as their attack. The fact that it takes a story, um, inherently built around a bunch of middle aged to like older people, and that's your main cast. The fact that it looks at a bunch of members of society who you've been taught to ignore, and to that they're dangerous, that they're lesser than, that you have a story focused on all the shittier quote unquote parts of society that you're not supposed to like, and humanizes it and makes you think, fuck, anybody could be anybody. It's just it's fantastic for longtime fans of the franchise. There's so much there for you to kind of dig into and enjoy. For people who have never played Yakuza before, it's the perfect jumping on point because it is a new protagonist, which brings me to Ichiban, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite protagonists in all of gaming, period, across any game. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's emotionally honest and capable. He cares so much about everybody around him, and it's fantastic. There's and just it does the most Yakuza thing in the most Yakuza way, where the main story is so dramatic, is so full of twists and turns to leave you scratching your head, while the side quests are just fucking ridiculous. The fact that you come across a guy and you save him, and he's just in a white trench coat, he asks you to come back to his lab, and you meet him, and he's basically profiling people and
Okay.
categorizing them like Pokemon. And then you turn around and there's a guy in green, a guy in blue, and a guy in red, and you're supposed to choose which one you want to fight. And then the rest of the game has you basically has like variants of like almost like Pokemon. You have almost like a Pokedex that you're trying to catch, like, figure out all these things. It's
So funny.
ridiculous and stupid and hilarious, and just everything about it is fantastic. And like I said very, very early on this year that it was my game of the year, and nothing's been able to knock it off that top spot. There's been shit that's come close. There's been shit that's been equal, that's been almost as important. But Yakuza Like a Dragon is such a fantastic reinvention of the series. I'm so excited for where this is going next. I'm so excited we're going to be getting more of Ichiban and the turn-based combat. I fucking love this game so much, and it is my game of the year for sure.
Beautiful, Matt. The Yakuza series is a series you've told me to play so many times. I own Yakuza 0. I own Yakuza
Mm-hmm.
1. I need to play them at some point. I promise you at some point I will play these games, and I can't
It's
wait to
okay.
try them out.
When we do this podcast in 5 years, Yakuza 7 will be your game of the year that year too. As for honorable mentions, I have some stuff I want to toss out.
Okay,
Do you
sure.
have anything that you want to call out, Darren, before we move on?
I don't have anything that I want to call out specifically as an honorable mention. I guess I'll say the Phoenix Wright, the Great Ace Attorney games. I'm very happy
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo finally ported those. I think they're better than the original Phoenix Wright games, and if you like courtroom drama visual novels, you could not do worse than you could not do better. Oh my god, than the Great Ace Attorney. And then I also want to give one last shout out to Psychonauts 2, because something I want to highlight about Psychonauts 2 that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
This was a game that was made 100% officially with no crunch. That's why the game took so
Hell
long to
yeah.
be made. But so if you want to support video games where the developers don't have to suffer while making the games, I think Psychonauts 2 is a
Mm-hmm.
game that you should support. And that's all I really wanted to say.
Fuck yeah. As for myself, I want to shout out Dreamscaper. That game is a fantastic roguelike and deserves to be celebrated along the likes of Hades, because I think it is just as good. Before Your Eyes, I've already talked about. Lost Judgment is just fucking awesome. Ratchet and Clank was an absolute blast. Persona 5 Strikers obviously rounds out my top 10. But in terms of other ones, very quick, Behind the Frame is a gorgeous little point and click thing that basically looks like a Ghibli movie. Chicory is a wonderful story about a dog and actually deals with mental health and stuff in a surprising way. Returnal is badass. Kano was a great time. It Takes Two has some of the best gameplay married with one of the worst stories I've ever experienced in gaming. And the last shout out, Darren, that I want to give, and I had to do my honorable mentions because I had to shout this out. My final shout out for this year is Death Stranding Director's Cut. This is the year that I finished Death
Hey!
Stranding, and it actually made me a believer. It actually made me a believer.
Yes!
So shout out to that. That's what I mean, dude. This year was a really weird smorgasbord of a lot of indies and fantastic AAA stuff. That like there really was something for everyone this year. Well, there wasn't anything that really like critically mainstream. Like this is the game of the year. Also, I want to obviously shout out Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5
Oh, yeah.
because those were
Sure.
also great.
Sure.
But yeah. Anyways, it's been a fucking year, Darren. Let's round out with a bit of news before we get going here, because obviously
Sounds
when
good.
you and I are left alone, we take too long and we do things. We talk too much.
Yeah.
Let's start with Eurogamer from Ishraq Suban. PS Plus owners of Final Fantasy VII Remake get free PS5 upgrade this week. PlayStation Plus subscribers who previously redeemed a digital copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake will be able to upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version from Wednesday at no extra cost. The enhanced version released in June and was a free upgrade for paid owners of the game, but not for players who scored their copy through PlayStation Plus. So basically, what's happening now is that PlayStation Plus subscribers who were previously not allowed to upgrade to the PS5 version of the game now will get the upgrade for free. The extra episode intermission, the DLC, which features Yuffie, is also going to be on sale for the next little bit. So it's one of those things where it's like, even if you are planning on picking up a PS5 or something, like it's a great way to just grab that upgrade and hold on to it because you can be able to play it later. I'm so happy they're finally doing this. I'm a little confused as to why it wasn't just a thing in the first place, but tell me what you think, Darren.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that confused why they didn't do it in the first place. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too, because
Mhm.
they didn't want it to affect sales of the PS5 version of the game. They wanted to make some money off the
Mhm.
PS5 version. And now that it's been separated enough, they're like, okay, you can have it now. So I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't have to give it to us for free. I'm glad they did, because
Mhm.
now when I get a well, I mean, I have the disc version, so I already had the PS5 upgrade. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, I'm glad they did it. I'm not gonna thank them too hard, because they did this only
Yeah.
because they wanted the money.
Yeah. I'm glad they did it. And that, yeah, I just repeat for anybody who's been looking forward to that update. Now you don't have to pay for it, so or you're eligible now to get it for free. So
And
that's great.
maybe you don't have to
Better,
play the PC
better.
version either, which is apparently terrible.
I've heard that port sucks. Let's move on to our next story written by Ed Nightingale. And this is one that Darren and I have alluded to quite a few times over the course of the show. Final Fantasy XIV is so popular, it's been pulled from sale. Due to ongoing congestion issues, Final Fantasy XIV has been temporarily suspended from sale. In addition, the free trial is now no longer available for new players. Existing trial players have also been deprioritized in the queue. Existing players have also been given an additional 2 weeks of free playtime on top of the 7 free days that was already promised by producer and director Naoki Yoshida. Yeah, Darren, I'm gonna throw to you right away with this one. The fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's so funny. It seems like the meme of telling everybody to try Final Fantasy 14 actually worked. And in a monkey paws situation, it worked far too well. Because now the game is so popular, there are too many people playing the game. Do not play this game. We are full. Do not come. I do not
Earth is
want more
closed
people.
today.
Yes, I don't want more people playing this game, because I can't play the game I want to play. Um, yeah, it's a really shitty situation, and it's all because of, yeah, a crazy surge in popularity that Square Enix was not accounting for. That was spurred on mostly because of the streamer Asmongold. I think starting a charge towards of all these WoW people playing Final Fantasy 14. So now there's just too many people. They didn't expect it. They're trying to buy servers so that they can, you know, release the congestion. However, because of the pandemic and because of the global chip shortage, there are no, servers available to buy. So they're like delayed on that. And so their best case of solving it, I think, is a pretty good solution. They're giving us now total 21 days free, which is accounting for all of the weeks that it's been out so far, uh, getting those refunded. And new players cannot buy the game. This is a really, really good move that shows that Square Enix values their paying customers, their long term loyal customers, over a quick buck. And not only are they not selling the game, Matt, they are also ceasing all advertising for the game. They're pulling advertisements, some physical advertisements they're also pulling, although they said they can't pull all of them, obviously, because of logistical reasons.
Yeah.
And for stores with physical copies, they're also working with retailers to try and pull physical copies from shelves. Like, it's insane and unprecedented, but I honestly think that they're handling it in the best way possible.
What, like, honestly, what a hilarious, I think the the monkey's paw situation that's gone horribly right is actually such an apt description, because like, when else have you ever heard of a game that is selling too well, that there are
Yeah.
too many people who want to who want to play it? And I think it's so interesting to see the difference in handling of the situation when you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XIV, where now for Final Fantasy VII Remake, they're like, okay, you can have this free update. There you go. Meanwhile, for this, they're like, we know how much more money we can make. The story, not just of how good Endwalker is, not just how it's a culmination of a long time coming, not just that they've made an alarming amount of the game already free, but them to say, you know what, anybody who wants to buy it, fuck you, sorry, we gotta wait. And for them
Yeah.
to even suspend free trial players and to deprioritize them in the queue, like,
Yeah.
for them to look at their fans and say thank you in such a visceral way is just awesome. Like, I love how they're handling the situation, because it really is the best you can do in a quote unquote terrible situation, because, you know,
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? And like
Yeah.
it's I'm sure things will get better with time, but just like what a fucking awesome problem to have for as a company.
Yeah.
Just speaks to the testament of the quality of the game. So that's dope.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Just
Yeah.
like, yep, just yes.
All right, our last story. Let's flip through
Both
this one,
thought
Darren.
both thought we were each going to say something, and neither of us had anything else
No,
to say.
I just wanted to see how long you would sit there in silence. This is coming from Matt Wales, written by again over at Eurogamer. Here's everything that happened during Nintendo's latest Indie World Showcase. I'm going to quickly just run through the announcements, and then Darren and I will each pick out one or two things that we think we're excited about. We got a new trailer for Sea of Stars, which is coming from the team that developed The Messenger, Sabotage Studios. This is coming in winter 2022. We got a trailer for Alicia, the Oblivion of Twin Goddesses, which is like a co-op focus puzzle-ish game from what I can tell. Locomotive is a comedy point-and-click adventure coming in summer 2022. Afterlove EP is coming from the team that did Coffee Talk and features a story about music, loss, and lyricism. We did not get a release date for this one. Dungeon Munchies, which is a game that was stealth dropped. It's a 2D side-scrolling action platforming game. The one quick thing I'll say about this one, from what I've seen about on the subreddit, apparently this port is garbage, and you should look into this game before you decide to buy it, because I've heard it is very, very rough. Not again speaking to the game's quality as a game, but evidently the port sucks. Moving on to Figment 2 Creed Valley, which is a sequel to 2017's Figment. Never heard of it, but it's apparently a musical-esque game with also has a two-player local co-op mode. It's coming out in February. There's a demo available now. Let's Play Oink Games. Moving on, Ending Extinction is Forever. We've seen a trailer for this one before. Oh, Endling, sorry. This is the very, very sad fox game, which looks adorable, but also like it's going to break your heart, coming in spring 2022. We got another trailer for Ollie Ollie World, which is coming February 8th. River City Girls 2, which is a sequel to the retro style beat 'em up to River City Girls, set to arrive next summer. And then we got a bunch of stuff like Don't Starve Together is getting stuff. Parkosaurus Chicory is out on Switch now. Grime is coming to Switch. Baby Storm is coming to Switch. And Behind the Frame, one of my honorable mentions, is coming to Switch in spring. And then we got Omori, which is a strange, unnerving turn-based RPG that's supposed to be quite the game, dealing with some pretty serious shit, coming out in spring 2022. Darren, what did you think about this indie world? Anything that stood out to you?
I actually do normally really like the indie worlds. I think they're usually pretty strong showings, but for some reason this indie world didn't really uh really excite me very much. I think because with indie games, they are usually appealing to their own, little specific niches. Thankfully, indie games and indie developers love to take risks, and I thank them so much for it, because it creates such a wide variety of games. Nothing really stood out to me too much, except for Locomotive, obviously comedy, point and click adventure, very Darren game. And I love the kind of like train Murder on the Orient Express like vibe to it. I'm really excited Grime is coming to Switch, because I would rather play it on Switch than PC. I never ended up picking up on PC. That was a game that was shown, I think, during the Guerrilla Games Collective, the Guerrilla Collective. And I was very we talked about it in an event. I can't remember which one, but very excited for it. And you laugh, but the Oink Games collection, Oink Games are actually very popular board game creator. And so them having kind of like a digital version of their board games on Switch, they're very well known for making small board games with very few pieces that are very portable, but have like nice rule complexity. So I think that's pretty cool that they're making like a video game version. So that was pretty much it for me. Nothing else was really speaking to me. What about you?
Sea of Stars is very much my shit. The art style looks awesome, and I'm very curious to see what Sabotage Studio can do with an RPG, especially how awesome The Messenger was. And I mean, it has the Chrono Trigger composer working with them as well, Yasunori Mitsuda, which is awesome. The other thing that kind of jumped out at me, Afterlove EP looks kind of sweet. I could already tell it's going to be a bit of a heart wrencher with its kind of with its themes and its subject matter, but I did like the look of it. Endling, again, Destiny and I were high on this one from the last time we saw it, but again, I'm excited but not about this one just because I know it's going to hurt. And I'm curious about Amori. I'm pretty sure Destiny's talked about this game before.
I feel like she
And
has.
the kind of setup for it, I'm almost down for a new turn-based RPG, and I'm kind of curious to check this one out a little more. But yeah, I think it was okay. I think it was solid. I think the timing of it was a little interesting, saving it for like pretty much the end of the year.
Yeah, a little
I
odd.
kind of would rather them kind of just hold, like, I'm guessing it's because they had a couple stealth drops that they wanted to do, so they're like, okay, whatever, we'll do an indie world for it. But yeah, I thought it was okay. I thought it was
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I never like, obviously indie worlds are never going to be like huge showstoppers. So I go into them with like the expectation of just like, I want to see some cool games. Let's see which games appeal to me. And yeah, so it was fine. Like I'm not gonna hate on the indie world. I think just for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
there's nothing really that was like super interesting to me so far.
Yeah, they're nice in the way that, like, okay, I learned about a new game that I probably previously hadn't heard of, or at least I know when a game that I care about is coming out soon. So in that way, yeah, it was solid. It was fine.
Yeah.
But that, Darren, brings us to the end of our Game of the Year special. We have talked a lot about a lot of games, and next week, get ready for the return of the three. Darren, Destiny, and I will be sitting down to talk a lot about what happened this year and kind of plans and ideas that we have going forward for next year. But Darren, I love talking Game of the Year with you. It's one of my favorite podcasts that we do every single year. And it's a blast. And you piece of shit, I can't believe I was wrong about your number one. Well, your number two game, I was right. But anyway,
I was wrong about you having It Takes Two. I didn't know if the gameplay. I knew that you didn't like the story. I just didn't know if the gameplay would win out. But it did not.
Yeah, it did not. Again, not to speak to the quality of the gameplay. The gameplay is fantastic, but anyways, the story just left a really bad taste in my mouth that I really did not enjoy. But anyways, Darren, that brings us to the end. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you guys very, very soon. We'll catch you next week. Peace out.
Later.